I fell for him at first sight, but after we married, his female colleague challenged me. This is what he did. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Jackson was still in the study den. Ruth lingered on the sofa for a while before tiptoeing to the study den door and carefully knocking twice. Come in. Jackson's voice came from inside, deep and sexy, Ruth's favorite sound. She took 2 deep breaths to steady herself, then slowly opened the door and stepped inside. Her body was stiff, her movements awkward. She couldn't form a complete sentence for a long time. Jackson put down the fountain pen in his hand, looked up, his gaze deep as he watched her, a faint, gentle smile playing on his lips. Is something wrong? Are you finished working? Ruth stammered. As she finished her stuttering sentence, meeting Jackson's questioning gaze, she closed her eyes, hardened her heart, and simply blurted it out. Can you sleep with me tonight? The fountain pen Jackson had just picked up dropped again. He stared at Ruth, taken aback, speechless for a moment. Ruth waited for a long time without a response. She opened her eyes, looked at Jackson's even deeper gaze, and shivered. Can you temporarily sleep with me tonight? No, stay with me? Oh, geez, can we just sleep in the same room? Ruth fumbled through her explanation. It took Ruth a while to make herself clear. My parents are coming over tonight. I'm afraid if they know we're sleeping in separate rooms, they'll get suspicious. Don't worry, I won't bother you. Ruth was completely red from head to toe. She wanted to run away, but she had finally mustered the courage to say it. Running away now would be such a waste. She secretly glanced at Jackson, only to see him already getting up and walking towards her. Your parents are coming tonight? Why didn't you mention it? What time are they arriving? Do I need to pick them up? With several questions in a row, Ruth's face grew even redder, but she felt happy inside. Seeing Jackson had already picked up his jacket coat from the sofa, she quickly said, No need. They arrived at the airport at 9 and are already on their way by car. They'll be here at 10. Jackson looked down at his wristwatch. 10 past 10. He subtly frowned. Ruth was always good at reading people's expressions. Seeing him frown, she quickly said, I swear, I didn't know beforehand. They only told me after they landed. I wasn't trying to hide it from you. I was afraid you wouldn't agree to sleep in the same room with me, so she had been agonizing over it. From 9 o'clock until 10, a whole hour spent steeling herself to ask Jackson. Okay, we'll sleep together. Ruth and Jackson met at a family gathering. In an upscale restaurant with an elegant ambience, in a corner by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Ruth hadn't eaten all day. She had worked late into the night and gone to bed very late. In the morning, her mom had dragged her out of bed, and by the time she finished getting ready, her mother was rushing her out the door, leaving no time to eat. You absolutely have to be happy with this one today. The youngest son of the Johnson family, he's your future husband. Ruth was practically pushed out. She was powerless to resist. To stop her mom from continuing to choose husbands for her, she could only accept the situation. This was Ruth's 20th blind date arranged by parents. She was exactly 30 this year. Considering her age, the number of dates wasn't actually that many, but none had been successful. Since the other party hadn't provided a photo, she told her mom he must be too ugly, and initially, she didn't want to go. You're 30 now. If you don't marry soon, you'll be old. That was her mom's frequent refrain, reflecting the societal familial pressure about marrying by a certain age. So, did women have to get married? Ruth arrived at the appointed upscale restaurant half an hour early. She put her head down on the table and slept for a bit. When she opened her eyes, an hour had passed, and the person she was meeting still hadn't arrived. She was starving, so she ordered a dessert first. Just as she took a couple of bites, her blind date arranged by parents arrived. Ruth's first impression of Jackson was excellent. He was exactly her ideal type. The man sat down and said, Sorry, something came up. I'm a little late. Jackson sat across from her and nodded apologetically. His every movement exuded gentleness and elegance. Ruth was already captivated by his appearance. No problem, I just got here too. Jackson noticed the plate in front of her, smiled without speaking, and signaled a waiter. He handed the menu to her. Ruth pretended to be elegant. "Anything is fine for me." "You order." She handed the menu back to him. Jackson looked at her. After asking a few questions, Jackson handed the menu to the waiter. He looked up and saw Ruth staring at him, mesmerized. Ruth was a painter, and Jackson was a university architecture professor. Their professions were different, but they found many things to talk about. After dinner, Ruth pretended she had an allergic reaction to mango and had Jackson drive her to the hospital. As Ruth lay on the hospital bed, she deliberately reached out and grabbed his arm. "If I get sick, will you take care of me?" Jackson looked at her with a lot of guilt. Seeing him nod, Ruth was thrilled. She immediately scrambled off the hospital bed and pulled Jackson towards the exit. "Then you have to be responsible for me. I have a psychological illness, the kind that makes me feel like I'm suffocating when I see you." She hadn't expected that upon meeting Jackson, she would be so bold as to say such outrageous things. Jackson didn't say anything while driving her home. Ruth was very worried. As soon as the car stopped, she ran out. Jackson called out to her from behind. She turned back expectantly, only to realize she had forgotten her medication. Back home, her mom asked her how it went. She just pointed at her face without speaking. Her mom applied the medication while scolding her. From that day on, Jackson didn't respond. Ruth waited for 3 days, gradually losing hope. Clearly, he had given her his answer. She was depressed for 2 days. On the 4th day, Ruth told her parents that she had been invited to Paris for an art exhibition, gallery show, which was very important. It's a really important art exhibition, gallery show. Missing it would be a lifelong regret. "Mom, can you bear to let me have a lifelong regret?" Okay, she was actually just going on a trip to relax and clear her head. Ruth was walking out with her luggage. Just as she took 2 steps, her mom answered a phone call. "He agreed? Who are you talking about? That handsome young man from last time agreed to marry? So fast? Give us some time, we haven't agreed yet. Tell him I..." Before her mom could finish, Ruth snatched the phone. "Agreed. I agreed to marry him." 2 minutes later, Ruth put down the phone. "Weren't you going to that art exhibition, gallery show? Your plane will be late. Go quickly. Don't come back for 2 months." Ruth dropped her luggage and said with a smile, "I'm not going anymore. I'm getting married." Finally, unable to resist Ruth's persistence, both sets of parents met. After both sets of parents met, Ruth and Jackson got their marriage certificate in just 1 month because Jackson's grandmother wished for them to marry soon. Ruth didn't object. She was already very satisfied with this marriage. Although she was puzzled by Jackson's earlier hesitation, she never asked. Even though they were married, they were actually not very familiar with each other. They quickly moved into the marital home, completing the journey from meeting to marriage in just 2 months. Although Ruth had fallen for Jackson at first sight, it was still her first time living with a man, so she was very reserved. After moving in, he voluntarily stayed in the study den. He was handsome, spoke gently, and had a pleasant voice. Ruth felt like she could wake up smiling from her dreams. After getting married, her best friend Sarah asked her out for dinner, first congratulating her on finally getting married, then complaining about how secretive she had been. Finally, Sarah even started speculating about her and Jackson's sex life. Ruth had married a man she was very satisfied with, but they still hadn't been intimate. Jackson was very busy. Ruth didn't know what he was busy with in the study den every day, but she knew he was busy. She felt awkward bothering him. Ruth planned to live with Jackson long term. Although she thought their current mode of interaction was okay, how lonely it was for 2 married people to not be intimate. For the past few days, she had been trying to find a way to advance their relationship, but she hadn't come up with a good plan. Now, an opportunity had presented itself. Her parents were coming to stay for a few days, so her first thought was to ask Jackson for help. Although she felt cornered into it, she was also happy because it was a rare opportunity. Her parents arrived at the house at 11 o'clock at night. To avoid troubling them, they had intentionally eaten dinner outside before coming over. It was late, and after Ruth and Jackson showed them to their room, her mom urged them to go back and rest quickly. After Ruth moved in, Jackson had directly given the master bedroom to her. The originally dark gray tone had been changed by Ruth into a pink, feminine room. I thought it was too plain before, so I redecorated a bit. If you don't like it, I'll change it back tomorrow. Jackson shook his head, indicating that she was the mistress of the house and could decorate anywhere she liked. Half an hour later, they both showered. Ruth lay in bed, looking at Jackson sleeping on the floor, feeling incredibly conflicted. Aren't you cold? No. Go to sleep. It's late. Jackson closed his eyes, and soon soft breathing sounds could be heard. Ruth tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. She reached out and touched herself restlessly. Feels pretty good, she thought. How can Jackson be so calm? Or am I just not attractive to him at all? As this thought arose, Ruth felt her self-esteem severely wounded. To a woman, this was a fatal blow. The more Ruth thought about it, the more wronged she felt. The more wronged, the more humiliated. The more humiliated, the bolder she became, until she lost all reason. She suddenly threw off the covers, got out of bed, and then lifted Jackson's arm and laid down in his embrace. In the darkness, Jackson opened his eyes. Ruth, do you know what you're doing? Jackson didn't move. His voice was low, hoarse, and sexy with suppressed emotion. His breath on Ruth's face instantly made her feel hot all over. She didn't know where she got the courage. After Jackson finished speaking, she didn't leave. Instead, she wrapped her arms around his waist. Ruth asked him, "Am I your wife?" Jackson murmured in affirmation. Ruth asked again, "Is it legal?" Jackson murmured in affirmation again. Ruth then asked, "Then why aren't you interested in me?" Her questions were urgent and full of grievance. Jackson didn't speak. Ruth, emboldened by a strange, sudden recklessness, mustered her courage and said, "I'm your wife. We're in the same room right now. Are you telling me you're still not interested in me?" There are 4 possible explanations for the situation. First, you have another woman. Second, you're not interested in me. Third, you like men. Fourth, your back isn't up to it. In the darkness, Ruth couldn't see Jackson's face darkening. Especially upon hearing the last sentence, his expression twisted. He lowered his voice. Ruth felt she could hear his anger, but she didn't pay much attention because she was also feeling very frustrated and wronged. Jackson didn't speak. He simply got up, picked Ruth up, and carried her back to the bed. Jackson's body was now pressing down on her. "Are you sure you want to fulfill your wifely duties now?" Ruth was startled at first, then her face turned red. She instinctively shook her head. Finally, feeling Jackson about to get up, she suddenly reached out, pulled him down, and kissed him on the lips. This was a hard-won opportunity to take their relationship to the next level. Ruth's remaining bit of sanity told her she had to seize the chance. In the increasingly heated air, Jackson pushed Ruth away. His deep eyes were streaked with red. In them was unconcealed suppression and restraint. "Ruth," he said, "I'm asking you one last time. Is this just a momentary impulse, or do you truly love me? I don't want you to regret this later." Ruth, breathless, simply wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him down. Why would I regret it? The next day, Ruth woke up at noon, discovering her whole body was sore. Her mom came in and, for the first time, didn't lecture her about sleeping late. Instead, she had a sly, excited look on her face. "You're awake. Hurry and get up to eat. Mom made you chicken soup and a table full of your favorite dishes." Ruth pulled the blanket over her head, but her mom yanked it off. Ruth was speechless, her face as red as a tomato. "You and Jackson were so loud last night." "Are you tired?" her mom said, grinning slyly. Ruth was both angry and mortified. She roared her mother's name. "I was just worried about you. I didn't listen carefully. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone." Her mom kept giving Ruth instructions before she left. After finally seeing them off, Jackson sent her a message saying he'd eat lunch at the university. Ruth was bored at home and was planning to just grab a bite and paint. When she entered the kitchen, a rich aroma filled the air. A note was stuck to the pot. "In the pot is a healthy homemade meal. Take some to Jackson at the university. It'll help nurture your relationship." To not waste her mother's effort, Ruth went to the university to find Jackson for lunch. Thinking it was her first time visiting Jackson's university, Ruth found Jackson's office. Jackson wasn't there. He was teaching a class. When the people in the office heard she was looking for Jackson, they seemed quite surprised and asked who she was and why she needed to see him. Why does that Jackson guy have pretty women looking for him every day? We're both single. How can the difference be so big? Ruth hadn't finished speaking. What did both single mean? Didn't they know Jackson was married? Didn't you know that Jackson is married? Married? How is that possible? You must be joking. If he were married, how could we not know? Jackson walked in, looking very surprised to see her. Just as he was about to say something, Ruth stood up and thrust the lunch at him. My mom made this for you. If you don't want it, just throw it away. With that, she turned and walked out, ignoring Jackson calling after her. She ran all the way to the university entrance and got a call from Sarah. She was a magazine editor and called Ruth to say their magazine wanted to do an interview with her and asked if she had time. Ruth said yes. She spent a busy afternoon there. It was 7 in the evening when she finished. Sarah took her out to eat, but Ruth wouldn't eat. The more Ruth drank, the harder she cried. She hit the table, feeling more and more wronged the more she vented. The next morning, Ruth woke up feeling dizzy, with a dry throat. She opened her eyes, closed them again, then carefully opened them. Why are you here? Opening her eyes in the morning, she found Jackson lying beside her. Ruth was inwardly thrilled and surprised, but her face was a mask of panic and stiffness. No classes this morning. Ruth blushed. That wasn't what she meant to ask. After that night, they hadn't been intimate again. Jackson had been busy with an academic project these past 2 days. To avoid parents suspecting, Ruth would have him work in the room, but he'd leave in the morning before she woke up. So, opening her eyes this morning and seeing Jackson there, she was both surprised and delighted. Jackson seemed very tired. He held her and fell back asleep for a while. When Ruth woke up again, Jackson leaned over and kissed her forehead. He said, Ruth, there's a dinner tonight. Will you come with me? At 6:30 in the evening, Ruth went with Jackson to an Italian restaurant. In a private dining room, large table in a back room, there were over a dozen people. Ruth recognized a few faces Jackson's colleagues. Jackson led Ruth to the only 2 remaining seats. Then he held her hand. The rings on their fingers practically blinded everyone. I'm married, he announced. This is my wife, Ruth. Over the next 2 weeks, Jackson took her to dinners and introduced her to all his friends. Hearing that Jackson was married, his colleagues from the university and friends from outside started visiting their home frequently. Ruth was happy at first. One by one, they wanted to treat them to meals. But that wasn't the main thing. The most surprising part was that Jackson's students were even lining up to invite them out to eat. Luna, a female colleague of Jackson's, an architecture department associate professor, highly educated, said, I heard you and Jackson were introduced by your parents. You're very pretty, but you're not a good match for Jackson. The rivals met. Luna arranged to meet Ruth at a coffee shop. As soon as they met, she directly stated her purpose. Ruth smiled. If I'm not a good match for him, then who is? You? You're in the same office, colleagues for years. If he thought you were suitable, why did he choose me? Luna was angry at her provocation. She took a sip of coffee and said, even if he married you, it wasn't because he loved you. Do you know why he was single for so many years and suddenly decided to get married? Ruth remained silent. This was something she genuinely didn't know. She had once wondered why a man as excellent as Jackson would need a blind date arranged by parents. Girls would flock to him eager for his attention. Look at Luna right in front of her, wasn't she just like that? Luna said she was pathetic and that she was just a substitute. Ruth asked her what she meant. Luna's smile grew more sarcastic. She said, Ruth, have you ever seen Jackson's wallet? There's a photo inside, an old one, that he's kept for years. That girl is the one he truly loves. He suddenly got married because of societal familial pressure about marrying by a certain age. He couldn't wait any longer. He only married you because you look a little like that girl. Ruth returned home. Jackson was on the balcony patio talking on the phone. Ruth sat blankly on the sofa for a long time. She only snapped back to reality when Jackson came over and gently touched her head. "What's wrong? Something on your mind?" Jackson asked her, looking a little worried. Ruth pursed her lips. She wanted to ask, but was afraid of hearing a cruel truth. After agonizing over it for a while, she gritted her teeth and looked at Jackson cautiously. "Jackson, could I see your wallet?" Jackson was taken aback. Ruth quickly explained, "New Year's Day is in a few days. I want to get you a gift. I noticed your wallet was old last time, so I wanted to see what style you like." Jackson had just gotten back and hadn't taken off his jacket coat yet. He reached into his inner pocket and took out his wallet. As he handed it to Ruth, he seemed to suddenly remember something. He paused, a hint of hesitation in his movement. It was that single moment of hesitation that sent Ruth's heart plummeting. So, Luna was telling the truth. There really was a secret in his wallet.